All right, podcast number 3. Here we got talking about ConjuPIT. So in case you've heard this and are not sure what it's about, we're going to talk about it today. ConjuPIT, yeah, exactly. So Pete, let's go. Give us a little background on your philosophy and everything training.
Yeah, so specifically with the ConjuPIT book or ConjuPIT in general, it's kind of a play off of conjugate, which I came up.
Wordplay.
Yeah, a little wordplay and some marketing. I'm not gonna lie, it kind of fits. But anyways, that stemmed from obviously my background as a lifter and doing the West Side style of lifting, the conjugate, which was um, my first experience with it. Um, and then adapting it over the years to fitting it into a model of training and developing athletes, and that runs the gamut of different sports. So the book itself is an ode to a principle based approach, and that's really this first book is. It's just basically the principles, explaining the why behind it. Somehow to I'm going to expand on it and get like more of a how to manual in there of how to do it. But anyways, it's titled ConjuPIT Principles: the practical, the tactical, the intangible for the thinking strength coach.
And I would say it's a pretty nothing any type of crazy methods where you can't like a beginning like strength coach cannot understand. I would say it's a good foundation for a lot of strength coaches to read this, and then even if you're more advanced, even to just see those methods and see where you're using them or not.
Yeah, and basically I wrote it for exactly that. So it could be very under. I sometimes you'll read a book, and
Not
a lot
really
of big
grasp it.
words, a lot of
Yes.
whatever, but it's like, damn, how practical is this, or how can I do
Exactly.
this, or I don't even understand what the hell that
Well,
guy
yeah,
was
you
really
would. I feel
saying.
like you would say it, and then you kind of give us a little example
Mm-hmm.
in different ways. And I loved how
Mm-hmm.
you created some real world examples. I understood the whole book. It's
And,
very easy to like grasp.
and that's good. You being an up and coming coach, and to not be overwhelmed by it. It's like, wow, this stuff. Number one, it makes sense.
Right.
Number two, here's how to do it in real time. Because you got a lot of lab coaches out there. You got a lot of people flaunting their degrees, and we talked about thermometers also having degrees, and where you can stick those. Not that I'm anti-education, but it's like you got to hit the pedal to the metal, and the rubber's
You
got
gotta
to
get
meet
some
the road.
experience.
You got to do it yourself. One, number two, you actually have to work with some people, and what I mean by work with people, not just rely on your marketing to bring good athletes into the door, and all of a sudden you look good.
Right.
Bullshit. Work with somebody from square one, and then see where that goes. And I feel at this point obligated to talk about, but also qualified to talk about it because I've done it since 2002.
Yep.
Which is a
year
pretty
after I
long
was
time.
born.
Shit. Damn. Anyways, all right. But anyways, we'll kind of loosely go through the
Yeah, let's
principles
go
here.
some methods of the principles, whatever you said.
Yeah, it's not really. Think of like the methods will be born out of one the principle. If you're a principle based coach, which is what I see myself as, but also your what you have available to you.
Yes,
You're only
yes.
gonna you can have the super whatever the hell method, but if you don't have the tools to do it, how could you honestly do it?
Implement it, yeah.
Right. So you got to think of principles will kind of guide you. But
it's not a copy and paste type deal.
Right. Exactly. You got to kind of think for yourself in some
That's
words,
with
but really you got to think about what you can apply in your situation. So,
how many principles are there again? Was there what,
I think
8?
there's 10 of them.
Like 10?
10, something like that. We'll
10.
cover them right now.
Oh yeah, I like them.
Semi-detail, but anyway, the first one is technique is everything. Master your sport, okay, but get savagely good at the basics. And what that means for us is for strength and conditioning coaches that dealing with athletes, you have to understand all you are doing is literally complementing their skill set.
Yep.
But also giving them trying to train the foundational biomotor qualities and also psychological qualities that will basically, way Cody Hughes puts it, is allow them to have better practice reps. And when you think about it, it's like, yeah, that makes sense because there's certain like an event sport. Take for instance, like swimming, right? If you're a sprinter, you might have 4 events that last about 20 to 45, 50 seconds a piece. in a meet. So how much training do you actually need to do to be good at that, right? A lot, a lot. So specifically with the
A lot
preparation
of
of the
reps.
swimmer is you're almost trying to protect them from themselves in a lot of ways, but also prepare like to deal just to literally deal with
The
practice.
volume.
Yeah, because
Is
the
it
meets
2
are
days?
relatively easy in terms of energy system demand, and you're racing, so you're going fast. They in the bigger meets are wearing their fast suits. They in training they might have they might have socks and flipper day. They're doing the towers, whatever else. I mean that stuff's hard. You're doing 2 days, at least in the high school level that we're at. So as a strength coach, it's like number one, what are they not getting? Two, it's like what kind of capacity do they actually have left in the weight room? And what you're left with most likely is real basic stuff, right?
Yeah,
Real basic
definitely.
stuff. So get savagely good at the basics.
We have a
Um,
video on that, so check that out
right,
too.
but
That was a good video.
the technical part too is you got to look. You know, when you're working with teams, you are basically trying to appease that sport coach as well. So they may have an idea that's completely off from yours of what's what. Well, so you may have a lift in there. It's like, you don't know quite about that, but all right, if we're going to do it fine, but we're going to do it right. If you use Olympic lifts, make sure you have some sort of technical progression where you're starting someone that has no experience in it whatsoever, and you're able to start with them. Like, we'll do the Javork style complexes with the dumbbells,
Oh
and
yeah, I like those.
I still got a lot of my kids still doing it months after, only because we got to get to a certain parameter of body weight load with it. We haven't quite gotten there yet, but you can see when they're going through it, when they eventually use the bar is easy,
Yep.
because it's a little bit more stable. So that's an example of that.
Hmm.
And just even like your basic stuff, like your squats, your presses. Make sure these kids, know how to where to place their hands, where to place their feet, what kind of pressure they have in there. Now, I'm not saying you have to go overboard like a physical therapist and go over, like
Into
technique
the
Nazi
details,
with it,
yeah.
but at the same time, they should know what things intrinsically feel like, because we know what they look like from the outside, and we should also know what it feels like from the inside. It's up to you as a coach to explain what that technique should feel like.
Yep.
And if there's a technique that feels good to them, right, and it may look a little bit off from what we think, it's like, okay, maybe that's just their
That's
anthropometry.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
where they're feeling. That's where they're feeling the whole body work together as one. So technique is everything. And again, I refer to some different stuff like the relationship of force and posture, right out of Mel Siff's book. There's I don't know how many references do
Oh,
I
I
even
was about to
have in that.
say
There's a
he has
lot
a
of them.
lot of references. So if you ever read his book and then you want to read more books, just look at his
References.
references.
Now,
Yeah.
that's not to say how well read I am. That's just to say, like, I use
He's a
those
nerd. He does read
references.
a lot. He's a
Yeah,
nerd.
that's well. Also, the thing is with references, you can list a lot and not get a lot. Meaning, like, I'm just listing it to list it so it looks like I know what the fuck
Right.
I'm talking about. And my thing is, I'll list it and
Give credit,
I'll
right?
give credit,
Mhm.
but I'll also explain what I got from it and what I think it means, because a lot of times it's up for interpretation.
Right.
So principle one, technique is
Technique.
everything. Have some sort of progression model that gives you a chance for them to learn, for your athletes to learn these lifts
Yep.
properly. Number one, obviously, to prevent frivolous injury in the weight room, which you don't want to do. Number two, so they get the most out of the training.
Yeah.
That's the whole key.
All
But
right.
yeah,
Number two.
yep. Number two, learn it before you load it. Okay, so what I mean by that is I have a whole, again, kind of piggybacking off a technique. Learn it before you load it. So learning these movements, and there's nothing wrong with loading them up right away. The thing is, it's got to be appropriated to their body weight. So I do a lot of my measures early on are built off of
Body weight.
body weight relation to
Relative.
lift, so AKA relative strength, which is really the strength that's measured anyway in sports when they talk about double body weight squats and X amount of body weight this and that. It's That's what we use as our parameters, and eventually will lead to our power loading scheme. Learn it before you load it, and the concept kind of starts with what I learned from Donnie Thompson about
I really like that. So from loads.
centrating the joints. I use the term centrating the load. So for instance, let's just use, I think I use the squat, and you can use any example really, but anytime, let's say the barbell back squat is what we want to get to, right? And you have a raw beginner or some kid who comes in and got some experience with the barbell back squat, but it just looks off, it looks terrible, they aren't executing it properly. So sometimes we'll bring people back, or we'll start people off with a centrated load, which for us is a goblet squat. So we're talking about holding the load in the center of our body. Any way we can do that, even a plate press that's within the realm of our body. What it does is it eliminates the stability, not eliminates, but really reduces the stability requirement quite a bit, which is like, well, why would you want to eliminate that? Well, in the early going, we actually want to put them in good positions.
Oh, definitely.
Where they know where the lines and the posture is, and then we can challenge that position and posture with load. So in the barbell backs, the goblet squat, it's here, dumbbell, uh, kettlebell, and then we might go to 2 kettlebells. You can see where that load expands out a little bit, and eventually to the barbell front or back, and the load's out here. So you have to stabilize in that frontal plane and a little bit of the transverse as well.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with all of that stuff. Do it, but they have to earn their way up to doing it. We'll have certain body weight markers that we'll hit. Look to each lift, whether it's the complex, the goblet squat, the kettlebell deadlift, all that stuff. And most of that is conceptually in the book. I think what I'm going to put in my expanded version or the manual is actually tell you what those are. Anyways.
All right, that's a good one.
Principle so yeah, 3. learn it before you load it. Principle 2, learn it. What's number 3? Force before velocity. Put your horse before the cart. Okay, meaning a lot of people, and what I mean by this is it's not just 1 rep max strength, so don't go quite to that conclusion yet, right? But before we get into the true dynamic effort or measuring bar speeds or whatever else, and this is basically right from the concepts of Dr. Brian Mann. I think this was in the Strength Coach Fundamentals on SCN, which I think is a great resource, a great tool, well worth the money and beyond as far as learning what's what. But Dr. Mann talked about force before velocity. Basically, you have to be strong enough to earn the right to do true dynamic effort and explosive work with a barbell. But obviously, in the context of slow things down a little bit. Right. Get your body stronger, just in a general sense. You can still jump, you can still throw, you can still do stuff like that, but you're not really. You're going to be so unskilled if you start to measure that stuff right away. I mean, you can, but you're going to be so unskilled that progress is it's just going to be all over the place, or you may be stagnant for a bit. Right. Especially with pubescent athletes who are still growing into their bodies. Like one example, Mason, basketball guy, he literally gained something like 22 pounds in 6 weeks and grew like 3 inches. Well, he's still trying to catch up with his body. So his jumps have kind of stabilized. His vertical, his sprinting ability, because he literally got longer, he got heavier. He's still trying to now catch up to that body weight. So going back to body weight relation, that's a great way to kind of keep your training in there, because as these kids gain that weight, and it's not necessarily just muscular, it's skeletal too.
Oh, yeah.
The coordination factor comes in, the connective tissue factor comes in, because the time a bone grows, the connective tissue stretches, causes it's like a micro pain, right? It's almost like a tearing. Yeah. So that's just the growth and maturation process. So in your training, you have to mind that a little bit. You have to tend to it, deal with. So use a body weight relation. Like, he's still on dumbbell complexes. He's been working since January. He's a freshman coming in from 8th grade, but again, trying to that slow cooking long-term approach.
Long-term approach
is built into that as well. So force for velocity, get them relatively stronger before you're actually attempting to go fast with a barbell. Because I've seen a lot of programs, they do this, they advertise as tech-based and science-based, and then they're throwing GymAwares on kids who have no skill with anything whatsoever, and they're like, it's just basically a glorified Nintendo game. And, you know what I'm saying? And then the lights go off and everything, the thing dings, and that's great, but like at that level, they just, yay, I got a prize, it's like, or something. But dude, you didn't really do anything because you're moving the bar for 65 pounds. It really doesn't mean anything.
Right.
So until you can get over that hump and have good technique while you do it, you know,
Again, the
no need
technique.
to really
Yeah.
go velocity based and
Any sense really?
yeah. All right, on
All
to
right.
the next one.
Principle
And
4.
again, this is going to seem counterintuitive, but fast movements before slow movements. That doesn't, and it seems confusing, but essentially it's how to set up your session, how to set up your training from beginning to end. So fast movements, you'll do your explosive stuff, or you'll
Jumps,
do your
throws.
Olympic lifts or whatever else first when your system is freshest. Sprint when your system is freshest. Now, I'm not saying you can't batch other versions of explosive stuff in later, because it's going to bleed into another principle. A
Right.
lot of these
Yeah.
principles bleed into each other.
Mhm.
But if you're trying to teach speed, okay, meaning running speed, you want that nervous system as fresh as it can be because
Yep.
it's reflexive and reactive at that point. When you go into your strength work, the brain sets in because things are slower, which is fine. It's supposed to be like that. But you don't want to do speed work after you just did a lift or speed work after you just did conditioning because you're not even going to be fast in the first place. I also suffix that with complex before simple. So do the complex stuff first.
Movements like
So
Olympic lifts,
yes,
for
so
instance.
like
Yeah.
our dumbbell complex will be done first in the workout. It also acts like a warm up for the strength lifts, and then we'll go on to the strength lifts.
Yep.
And before that dumbbell complex, we were sprinting and jumping and throwing. So that's all that.
Simple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very simple to follow. I know it seems counterintuitive, but fast movements before slow movements, complex before simple. Next,
Principle 5. Are we on?
yes, principle 5. Oh, and this is more of a um, there's two parts to it really. So it's give them a chance to win every day.
I like this one. Definitely.
So what I call suffix it with TTOs, auto regulate to dominate. So in my training, I always have what's called, and I don't know if I invented this term or not, but a targeted training objective. So we will have what I mentioned before, like those body weight relation goals for certain lifts over the long term. We'll also have daily marks to hit. So like let's say if I did 50% of my body weight for 3 sets of 6 last workout. This workout I'm going to go 3 sets of 7, or I'm going to try to get to that 3 sets of 8 mark so I can bump up the weight next time. So within each portion of the workout, you'll have targeted training objectives, you know, each workout, each session, each week, each month, macro cycle, however you want to look at it, and then over the course of a training program to go on to the next one. It's kind of like a little bit in that belt system philosophy.
Yeah.
But
create some buy-in,
correct.
enjoyment,
Right,
having
correct.
fun. Yeah.
So we'll see this kind of more prominently in the explosive block when we do jumps and sprints, and that's always fun because the kids can compete on something. And a jump and a sprint,
Can't mess it up.
again, those are very tough to mess up, as Evie said. They're very tough. You jump, you land, you run, and you slow down or you stop.
Yeah.
Or you can do change of direction work 5, 10, 5. It's always fun for them to see the numbers and see the progress over time. And then we can kind of batch those TTOs also into our lift. You can also, meaning pure raw numbers, or you can put like a volume TTO, like you know, I'll give a kid 30 reps of sit-ups or reverse hypers and as least sets possible. Well, I did it in 2 sets as opposed to 3 sets last time. Good job. So they got like a little volume PR.
Right.
So if you could give
in many ways, yeah,
give them multiple chances to win, and this was in the late great Glenn Penley's book about giving them multiple chances to PR as weightlifters, where you can PR off of a 5RM, the snake and ladder, PR off a back extension. You know, who knows? But
yeah.
especially with these younger athletes, they like that instant gratification. Heck, even the adults, like,
Oh, I love it.
oh my God,
too.
you did a stamina set with, you know, sets of 15 as opposed to 12 last time with the same weight, or you're able to bump stuff up 5 more pounds. I mean, over the course of a 25-minute on the minute cycle for them, you know, that's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, okay, and you show them that actual live in time feedback.
Progress. Yeah.
Right.
Everyone loves to see the numbers. And I would say even like the explosive block where you're testing all the jumps and the sprints.
Yep.
You get so whether let's say they PR, they're feeling great throughout the rest of the session. They crush the rest of it. But let's say they don't. Then they're like, all right, now I want to get after this lift.
Well, in your own experience, how was that?
Exactly the same way. Like let's say I'd PR'd on a sprint, I'd be super hype. I'd be so excited, and then just feel good the rest of the lift. And then the rest of the lift, like you have said before,
It
super
was on
easy to
fire. It
coach.
was on
Super
fire.
easy to
Yeah.
coach. Yep. And then if they don't do well, then they get after the lift harder.
Yep.
You know?
Especially her.
Yeah.
If she would get pissed, which she would get pissed often because she was like, maybe a 5/10 slower, but sometimes
Yeah.
that happens.
It was during in season too, though. So.
Yeah, it's
Like
always
when I
tough,
mainly
right?
trained, but
And that's why we can do that stuff in season. And two, for us as somebody more advanced like Evie, when she was in season, we would still do those measures. And if she was not quite like if she was outside of like what do we use 90% maybe.
yeah,
So if you were outside of 90%, we would actually change that workout to more of, hey, let's cut the volume a little bit,
'cause I was
or
dead
the
or something.
intensity. Let's bring it back to a speed and power type thing, so
Yep.
we can get that, recover that system, let that system calm down a little bit. Because depending on
Definitely.
the workload at school and then with your team and you catch, so that sucks.
It's
Well, it does. It's just a very
very
demanding.
demanding. That or
It's
pitching, yeah.
it's got to be the most, yeah. Pitching and catching in softball, baseball is probably the most demanding position out there.
Yeah. All right.
Don't anybody fool you. All
Cool.
right.
Yeah. PR every day in
Yep.
different ways.
Yep. Give them a chance to win every day. All right.
Number
Number 6,
6.
variation without the noise. So this is one where we talk about classic conjugate, and I'm not shooting it down or criticizing it anyway. But classic conjugate, people think of changing the exercise every week. You're changing the main lift every week, which is fine if you're super experienced and you need that rate of change. Yeah. If you're not, then how could we truly put it this way? A lot of coaches, well, we never want the body to adapt. It's like, well, I do. I do want an adaptation. I want an effect, and I want to see where it goes. And this is more or less learned from doing the Dr. B course on Evil Track with Derek Evely. You talk about variation without the noise. So when you have like a set of exercises, you want to see what happens over time and how it affects, in essence, for us, a test exercise or in the explosive block, what I call just an explosive block exercise. So we want to see, is this making our jumps higher? Are we sprinting faster? Are we able to change the direction better? We can only do that by keeping the exercise set consistent. For some it may be, I get criticized a lot. It was like, well, it's the same thing every time. It's like, well, until you get better at this, it's not going to change.
It's not changing.
Because if I change it now, all of a sudden it's like,
new shock to the system.
okay, you're going to be, yeah. And usually that change. So basically, like we talk about exercise soreness. Yeah, it could be volume and intensity, but more times than not. And this is why coaches are ill-fated in changing exercises, especially in season. Changing the exercise actually makes you sore because now it's a new movement pattern that you're not used to, and so everything's trying to adapt around it. I always like variations of movement patterns over actually changing the exercise completely. But you have to stick with something long enough, one, to adapt to it, two, to see what the adaptation was. Now, if the adaptation was off, meaning it didn't contribute, then now as a coach,
that one doesn't work for that athlete.
Here's how. Well, yes, or you're just going to change a variation. Maybe we now need to do power work, or maybe we need to do reduce volume a little bit, stuff like that. But you're not going to be able to see that by changing it all the damn time. So that's all that is. Classic conjugate seems to go like change it all the time, but you're changing it with a bunch of amateurs. In my opinion,
especially with a bunch of high school kids.
Well, especially if you have athletes, because keep in mind, their minor is the weight room, their major is the sport, and usually they're minoring in sports as well, meaning they're playing multiple sports. So guess what? Your minor is the weight room. Although it forms the foundation, you're not going to change much, especially if they have not, again, using body weight relation. If they haven't hit the standards on certain exercises, there's really no point. You can have you may have to vary stuff around injury, stuff like that, but more times than not, you don't need to vary it, or at least stay with it long enough to see an adaptation, guys.
Yep.
So that's all that is, and there's a full explanation. All right, we'll get the next one. Where to go? Oh,
number 7. Are we on?
Yes. Number 7. Train under to go over. I'm using a quote from Tony Holler. Don't let today ruin tomorrow. Meaning, probably in the weight room more prominently, submaximal loading, right? It's a reference to that, but also overall volume and not going to the well, meaning, if you're an RPE person or whatever, you would want to think, my rule of thumb is leave 2 reps in the tank at all times. No reps should ever be too much of a, Yeah, heavy, fine, meaning like a slow, grindy strength, fine. But you should end every set. You should never miss a rep, as Tony Thompson says, Ed Cohn says, right? But also you should leave some in the tank. Why? Because, again, the weight room is to complement their ability to practice, which then complements their ability to play. If you impede with that recovery, none of that makes a damn difference. So train under to go over. And again, that's more covered. So I have more details in the book. And there's a picture of Ali with,
Get the book.
there's a picture of Ali, the Serbs there with throwing up after a 200 race in track and field. But anyways, I thought that was a great picture. She's awesome. Anyway, number 8, principle number 8, condition while you train.
This one I like a lot.
Stay in
I love
shape
it.
year round. And I kind of quote Joel Jameson, conditioning is the currency of performance. So that principle is how I use more prominently the use of timestamps for everything I do, or a time allotment for everything you do. Now, every coach can probably may be familiar with it, or if they're not, they can easily do it, implement it on Monday, right? So I'm a big fan also of Joe Kennan, the tier system, and a lot of his stuff has timestamps on it, like E75, 075, meaning every 75 seconds on the 75 or on the minute 15. And I kind of got that idea with talking with the swim coaches I work with over the years. I'm thinking like, damn, they do all this interval-based stuff. Okay, rather than just saying go here, go there, go there. That's a language that endurance community, that swim community can speak. Why not speak it in the weight room? Okay, so it's a way I can kind of get over. So anytime we have our cycles and for the swim team, and again, the great thing about the timestamp is we're able to get that conditioning effect while we lift. At the same time, we're very efficient. Like if we're not done 35, 40 minutes for an in-season, now keep in mind the team I work with, sometimes I'm their third thing of the day, and that's the last thing they want to do. So if we can drive quality work in a less amount of time and give them enough time at the end of it to recover, it's so much better at the end of it. That is, but they do have to work hard. That's the thing.
Yeah.
If you're just kind of going through the motions, then yeah, it's not going to do anything, which some seem to do these days. But you have to put the work in for the amount of time. But anyways, if you could put stuff on a timestamp, or put little finishers at the end where, hey, you guys got 5 minutes as a group to do this, get as much volume as you can. That 5 minute period doesn't seem like much. Well, it really isn't, but you want to stimulate that aerobic system, that glycolytic maybe, especially with swimmers, they're lactic dominant. Okay. Stimulate it to a little bit, challenge it with some load, some speed on the barbell if they're doing certain things like that. But it's kind of giving them what they're not getting, but in an overloaded environment there. So yeah, condition while you train.
Also about it is I feel like a lot of coaches miss that out, the conditioning portion.
Yeah,
they're all about the weights.
They do it separately, right? And then you're just over tipping the stress bucket.
Yes. And then it's more efficient, easily. And then when you think about in the sport context, when you're going to playoffs, a lot of those teams are great. The best teams that win are who can achieve those high outputs longer.
Yes.
That's basically what it is.
What in the scientific term they'll call it repeat sprint ability, right? But that can be trained, right? So if you train at a certain speed, okay, you know what the time output is for that, and if you gradually densify that training by shortening up the rest interval, even by 5 seconds every week or something, get to a certain point, but you're still adhering to the rules of the 1 to 3 work to rest ratio around there, whatever it may be, or 1 to 2, whatever it may be. Then you're conditioning yourself to be explosive late in the game.
Yeah, and I saw that a lot even last semester. We were in the playoffs, and we won the championship game conference because the other team, they couldn't pitch their best pitcher because she had just pitched the rest of the games, and she was not conditioned. So we had an extra edge, and we were a good team, and we had that extra edge. We won the championship game. Who knows how that other game would have been? I mean, I have confidence in my team, but it's also who can produce the longest. And our pitcher, I feel like, shows that a lot. Our number one, she's able to produce so much consistent power in her pitch, and she has great conditioning. So that's a huge
when you
thing.
when you can batch it into a workout,
yes,
right?
It's
What,
always in
well,
yours.
what as an athlete, what's probably the worst word?
Conditioning, get on the
Conditions, right?
line.
No one get
No
on the
one
line and
likes
start doing
it.
this or
Yeah.
300s or
So
whatever
he
it may
does
be.
it every session. I see it. I watch it every session.
Sneak it in. It's like
Sneaking it
vegetables.
in. It's like vegetables. Yeah.
It's like
So
vegetables.
they don't even realize they're benching, rowing, slams, but it's conditioning still because they're still on that timer.
They're on that timestamp.
Yeah.
They go. It's reps, and once they get it conceptually, like even if they're doing like a 3 exercise for 3 set thing, and they're done in like 9 minutes, and they're like, their heart rate's humming about 140, 160,
versus
whatever it may
20
be.
minutes for a main lift for other people.
Right. Some people may take their time, or there's no urgency to get to set, and that's the other thing. You build in that urgency. Boom, I'm attacking the set.
Exactly.
I'm going to try to get these reps done almost as quickly as I can so I can rest a little bit more.
Right.
But then that, it always gets you in the end, and then you allow them a little period of time to recover, and then they're back.
That's definitely a great principle.
But you chip away at that conditioning without telling them it's conditioning, because the body doesn't know whether you're running, lifting, whatever. It just knows
it's
you're working.
Yeah.
So I'll sneak this in all the time with even my own lifts. I do it. I always 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Boom. 5 exercises on the minute.
Also, if you're running slow on time,
it's very time efficient. Or if you got, there's only 30 minutes to lift today, guys. It's like, boom, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know I could buy the ConjuPIT Strength Condition Express manual. That's also available on my Gumroad, and see where I can fit stuff in. Yeah, any more with that one?
No, that one's good. That was good.
So kind of piggybacking on that, again, these bleed in. Principle number 9: develop athleticism where you can in any way you can. And I suffix or expand the Joel Jameson quote: if conditioning is your currency, then athleticism is your nest egg, right? So if you have the ability to, as Joachim would say, right, let athletes athlete. If you have the longer you have the ability to do that stuff, right, the bigger your bandwidth of athleticism. I'd say the more resilient you are to injury. Also, the more, how should I say, your decision making gets better, right? And you don't, when the shit hits the fan, you don't shit. You're fine. But anyway, athleticism is your nest egg. So I talk about here.
Athleticism is important now. This day and age, you see athletes that do not look like athletes or act like athletes. I haven't even seen at the college level, and I'm just like, if they could just move better,
right,
that would change their whole game.
Right, and it's how can we do this? Right,
so.
It's how can we do this in the weight room, and definitely have to give a shout out to Zach Avanesh and his encyclopedia of underground strength and conditioning, which he's coming out with the 2nd edition, which I'm very excited about. But anyway, I call these beast circuits, right? So we build extreme anti-fragile strength and toughness. I know that's a kilometer, big words, but anyway, a beast circuit is essentially that. It's kind of what I just mentioned, like on the minute stuff, but we'll pick odd movements, odd lifts. Zach refers to imperfection training, which Mel Siff referred to in super training, of not always having the most ideal environment, or changing or varying the movement. Like I saw this video with Will Rattel the other day, and I couldn't help but like hoorah for that guy. But he was talking about, Nikolai Bernstein, and the way you kind of learn stuff is by slight variations. So let's say, I think Will's example was step ups, right? So he had one, set 1 was just a straightforward step up. Set 2 was a lateral step up. Set 3 was a crossover step up. That's a perfect setup where you can do 3 sets of the same movement, same but different, as Dan John would say, right? So you can throw that right into a B circuit. We'll also do stuff like bags and kettlebells and carries and sled drags and all that sort of stuff. Yes, exactly. Because there's farms out here, but no one's working on them. But anyway, you can put that in our little beast circuit, and I again also have a little workouts and stuff in there. But tumbling, which we're going to do a tumbling workout. I haven't done that in so long.
Doing that is, I talk about that on Joachim's podcast. Doing that, game changer.
And I got how you can batch that into your training. If you can do that, and and still do strength drills in between it and use it as a
Definitely.
what I call treks or transitions, where you're doing an exercise on one end, you do some sort of movement stuff on the other, and then go to the other end and do another
Definitely.
movement. So
Yeah.
how can you fit that sort of stuff in? Because that's really where I think that I hate using the freaking term injury prevention, because you can't prevent something that's inevitably going to happen. Like if
Injuries
someone,
happen.
if you get punched in the face,
You're gonna get injured.
potentially
Yeah.
you can break your nose, break a
Depending how
cheek.
strong a person is, but yeah.
And if you're in a boxing match or whatever, you're playing contact sports, you know, you're going to get nicked up. You're going to get things. The potential for injury is high. If sports were safe, then one, they wouldn't be fun. Two,
One thing.
no one would get injured. So let's just accept the fact that sports are not a safe endeavor, and being at the top of the best of your game is even unsafer, because you're sacrificing so much, including your body
Yep.
and everything else. So, but it does build injury resilience.
You can build a resilient athlete for sure.
Yeah, you'll be more.
And if they do
There'll
get,
be reduced risk for injury, I guess, is the
yes,
term for all you white coats out there,
and if you do
the
wanna,
white coat coaches.
you also can just build that body up. I was gonna say something else, but go ahead. I totally forgot.
It's all right. Anyway, we'll move on to number 10. I think this is the last one. Give them time to grow, to adapt, to fail. Right. So not everything, like I said, not everything's going to be perfect, but when you give them time, and this is also referred to how you're laying out your training cycles, you can do stuff like I've done my best stuff on, believe it or not, my weeks sometimes with athletes. So if they come in twice a week, I'll do a 3-day program. If they come in 3 times a week, I'll do a 4-day program. And you're thinking like, well, how the heck do you fit? So my weeks are actually, for the most part, except for her, because she's nuts. She wants to go like 6 days a week. So it's like,
I
all right, might
do.
as well do 4 days a week, 4-day program, whatever. I just do that because so my weeks lay out more than likely not 7 days, but 9 days. Um, and as far as the themes of the workout,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I always say give that time to adapt, and then also you know you have leeway to change stuff in there.
definitely.
But give them time to adapt, time to fail, time to learn. So if they, you know, a lot of times everybody gets into like, you know, form and doing it right. To me, a lot of stuff, especially if you got a young athlete or somebody that's never done it or coming off an injury, not everything's going to look perfect right away. It's kind of in reference to, you know, the Nikolai Bernstein. It's you know, you vary stuff by learning different grooves, different patterns. I mean, yeah, there's guidelines and rules to follow, postures and positions you're looking at. I always say shapes, right? If the shape looks ugly, it's usually an ugly movement. But if the shapes look good, and but the thing is, especially with kids, young athletes or young trainees who have never trained before, it's going to look ugly, right?
It will.
So the way I look at it is first day, 10 reps, you're going to get 10 different ugly looking reps. The next day, 10 reps, you'll get 2 or 3 reps that look absolutely good. And then 70% of it's again ugly. And
Ugly.
then the next time it's 5, next time it's 7, 8, 9, 10, until you're doing 10 perfect reps, right?
Yep.
But it takes a coach's eye, number one, patience, give them a chance to fail. So they're kind of feeling an off movement, whatever the movement. And then all of a sudden their body gets stronger, the technique gets better. Oh, this is where I go. So a lot of strength is not just muscular growth and output. It's a coordination game. And loaded movement is, there's still a skill to it. You know, as easy as it is for all of us, we all had to start somewhere. And
Oh yeah,
do
definitely.
we remember? You know, like myself when I started, I was pretty much self-taught, self-trained. I didn't have any coaches really showing me outside of when Lance Vermeil taught me the Olympic lifts. But he went in detail of how the positions feel and all that. Oh yeah, yeah. So that expedited it. Having a good coach expedites that
Learning process.
yeah, getting dumped on your head, that failure process, because trying to learn it on your own, you're just kind of like, well, it says to do this, so this is I guess this is how it feels, okay. But you know how much longer it took me to learn how to squat from when Lance taught me, like boom, okay, I got it like that.
Right.
So do find a qualified coach out there for whatever your endeavors are, so it expedites that process. But be also, as an athlete and as a coach, be able to live with things not looking great
Looking
all the
right.
time,
Yeah. That's
and
okay.
then even the levels of adaptation that Derek Evely talks about, there's 3 levels of adaptation. Sometimes you got to go down to go back up, or you'll stay here for a while before you go up, or there'll be ones that'll go up and then they'll go down. But know that, right? Know that everybody adapts a little bit differently. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, those are the
cool.
principles, kind of in a
Yeah.
rough detail. But
I'm thinking we could do videos on real principles in real life, and we can do 10 different videos. That'd be cool.
10 different videos, or
10 different videos of like doing in the weight room. That'd be cool.
yeah, we can do that. And a lot of these principles might even be not redundant, but they're going to bleed into each other. And
Right,
that
right.
was the whole point of writing this book, is so coaches get an idea
Great
of
foundation of this.
principally,
Yeah. What's
from a
going on?
principle standpoint of, yeah, what to do. I'm going to, or what actually happens. I'll go into the how to a little bit more when I expand on this manual and give more lifetime stuff, workout stuff like that. But yeah, the book's been live for a while. Looks like I wrote it in 2021, a couple years ago. But feel free to. It's on my Gumroad, and I believe it's on
It
Amazon
is on
hard
Amazon.
copy.
Yeah.
Is it a hard copy?
Yeah, it's a hard. I have
Oh
a hard
yeah,
copy.
there it is. Yeah, I forgot I did that. But anyways,
Yeah.
the hard copy one's a little bit more expensive than the Gumroad one. But yeah, feel free to buy it. Give me some feedback, and
Yeah.
if we get enough of
And
you
it's pretty
guys,
cheap.
maybe
It's not anything crazy. Yeah.
maybe we'll set up a group talk there about the book
Oh, that'd be cool.
and do that.
All right. Yeah. And then I guess we could just end with let's give them a little sample session. Yeah.
Okay, sample
Okay.
session.
Sample session.
So
Let's just talk about it. For a regular athlete, say they play basketball and football. I don't know. Just
basketball and football.
yeah, like they're
All
but
right. So to me, an athlete's an athlete. I don't care what sport you play. You pretty much need the same
oh,
stuff,
definitely,
especially if
definitely, yeah.
you're a high school level guy or girl. So every we hit our wake up spots with RPR stuff, and I know that's controversial to some people, but it's like, to us, it's like brushing our teeth, right? You know that, like, you brush your teeth every day, and you don't really notice the effects, but you're not paying the dental bills, right? So for us, we wake up the nervous system, we hit up our wake up spots. We go through that obviously in the first workout in detail, and why we do it. And the kids are like, "Oh my God, my hip flexor works so much better." It's like, why are my arms holding up better? Well, it's because we're just setting up your brain in the right spot. So we'll hit RPR spot, we'll hit wake up spots, and then we get to our warm up. And usually our warm up is, I'm not gonna lie, it's a sprint based warm up. We warm up the sprint because in our explosive block, we're sprinting in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
Um,
Whether it's drills or actually going sprinting 10
yeah,
yards.
so that's going to vary. So I'll kind of digress into how it should vary, right? So if I have a small group or a one-on-one, we're usually doing the explosive block most every time. Now, explosive block is nothing more than, it's a measurable sprint, it's a measurable jump. We might throw a medicine ball throw in there. We typically don't measure that unless they are an actual thrower. But they're able to get multiple high intent reps of sprinting. Usually for us at this point, thank God I'm at a place where we have a 50-yard turf that I can run 20s, and I'll laser time them with the arena gear. Now, some may have Dasher or whatever, more fancier ones. I like arena gear, one, because it's consistent. It's easy to set up. I can do in group, one-on-one, or large team
Yeah.
settings and still get a number. So for that, I can extrapolate. If we're doing a 20-yard dash, I got the extra gates, and we could extrapolate a 10-yard dash and a fly 10 as well as a 20. So I can extrapolate 3 different metrics with one sprint, which is awesome. I always love shotgun effects. 2, we're doing some sort of vertical or long jump. As they get better and better, we'll add a resisted version. So I know another controversial guy, but I really like it. Jason Bidney, Explosive Mechanics, will do the dumbbell jumps to kind of stimulate the regular vertical jumps. I've seen some pretty good gains from that, and also it's, follows a bit of a conjugate style wave
Yeah, definitely.
where you got like a 20-pound dumbbell one week, 25s and 30s. That's just an example. It could be something different, but for me, I appropriate that to their body weights as well. And as they grow stronger. We're searching for somewhat of a loaded power output there. So we'll do our one version of our jump or two, and then we'll go into our sprint. Now, with a lot of kids, initially we'll just measure 3 sprints. What I've also done is some contrasted with what I call a technique sprint. So we'll use the drop-in box drill a la Jeff Hauser. She was on with Sheldon Dunlop, talking about oscillatory training. I know I'm digressing, but hey, I just want you guys to know that where I get my sources from, and you guys can look them up too. But that was on Joel Smith's, I forget the name of his, Just Fly.
Just fly. Yeah.
So check out that podcast. A lot of great, very dense, dense information.
Definitely,
I
yeah.
think I listened to that Dunlop and Hauser podcast probably 3 times.
3 times.
Just going back and playing it. And I'm like, oh, that all makes sense. So we'll use that usually for our start drill, or we'll run with the chains too. If they get older, probably usually like high level sophomore, junior, senior, college guy. We'll do a resisted run and then a sprint without. If we're looking more for like a top end speed day, we'll do versions of wicket runs and then run the 20 as well. Because we got to look at this too. I mean, the fly sprints are great because it gives them an absolute speed thing. But in sports too, a little bit, I guess, a little sport specific. They only have so much time to get up to top speed.
Yeah,
Especially if they're basketball, that cord is not very long. Like boom, they got to be off in 2 steps.
definitely.
Right.
Acceleration wins the game.
Football, it's the guy.
Different, yeah.
Yeah, football or any field sport like that. It's who gets to the spot within that first 5 to 10 yard box. Right. So you got to get up there right away. So those are 2 different sprint days. Again, we're long jumping on another day as well. Maybe long jump against band tension and then long jump out.
Yep.
The other day we're looking at single leg long jumps. I sometimes have them go lateral. If I'm looking at basketball guys right now, because they're lateral push, a lot of them they suck at it. So we'll measure it. If it's deficient, or you could find a leg to leg deficiency there if you're really into that. For me, it's like, yeah, some guys are like a foot less on one leg. It's like, bro, we got to bring this up.
Yeah.
Like, because this is like, no wonder you take off of one leg all the time. And then we'll do our 5-10-5 shuttle also with the arena gear. You could just switch it right on the app and get a 5-10-5 and you're good. So explosive block usually looks like that. Might throw in some med ball throws in there, different stuff. Moving right on to the lift. Usually we'll go, depending on where they're at, if they qualified for a main lift, meaning they've passed the Javor complex with 40%. I use dumbbells because then I'll go right into the barbell stuff after that. 40% of their body weight. And again, if they're still growing, that 40% grows with them.
Yeah.
So they may hang out there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do that Javor complex paired with a jump. And the Javor complex I really like because one, it warms them up for the other movements. Two, that there's some cardio going on. Those kids are blowing up after that. So if they do a set like that with a jump, they're usually doing a 90-second rest, and we'll go 2, maybe 3 sets depending on where we're at. How many days a week they're coming in, other extracurriculars. If they're coming in 3 days a week, I'll do 2 sets. If we're coming in twice, I'll do 3 sets. So either we're doing 6 sets a week on that.
Yeah, yeah.
And trying to do a rep climb system with it. 6, 7, 8, I believe.
I gotta try those. I don't think you've showed me the Javor complexes.
Well, because
I've heard of it.
You're more advanced, so I didn't really need.
I know,
to
but I
do
just
it.
want to see it.
Yeah. Oh no, we'll kick.
We could do a let's what did we that one thing?
What it looks
do
like.
it now or do it now.
Do it now. What it looks like.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll do that for everybody there. So we'll do Javor complex, or if they're past that, we'll just go with a main lift, and that could be a clean, that could be a snatch. I like Joe Ken's layout of his tier system. So if it's total body day, we'll do total body lift. It could even be a trap bar deadlift, and we'll usually pair that with some sort of specialty jump. So I like varying that jump as well. So if we'll do that with a horizontal jump, we'll say like either hurdle hops, we'll do hurdle hops from the side, we'll switch it to the side, we'll change direction with it, whatever it may be. We'll change it every set just so they're learning something a little bit different. And when you're doing that, the slight variation of those jumps, it keeps them mentally engaged. So after that main lift, we'll usually hit up a strength circuit. And again, strength circuit / beast circuit, depending again on, if they're closer to the in season, we won't do as much beast work. Only because it could get kind of hectic. We try to keep them a little bit more controlled. But that's where I'm putting, let's say if it's a beginner, I'm putting some sort of single leg drill, a push and a pull, batching those things together.
Yes.
And we're going 3 sets on the 115. If it's somebody that's a little bit older, that might be where you go into, or if they're after the main lift, we might just do a pure, squat or a single leg with another type of pull, and we'll just pair off those two. If we're doing a circuit, a B circuit, we'll do different variations of single leg work with different variations of a pull and a push. Like the other day we did push-ups on the sticks. I call them the sticks, they're just parallel handles.
Oh,
their
I was
hands
like
are like
sticks?
that. So we'll say 2 bounces out of the bottom, or kind of like an oscillatory. We'll say, touch your shoulder, something. We'll kind of vary that push-up a little bit because push-ups can get kind of boring if you're just doing them.
Yeah. You have a lot of good
or down dog T. Yeah,
variations.
there's all types of things, and then we'll do the rope row with inverted row with the ropes because it kind of trains their grip like that.
I
Usually you're
like that.
holding an opponent, or it's just hand and wrist stuff, stuff like that. And then at the end, it might be, we'll usually we'll usually go like 1 by 20 on some posterior chains, posterior shoulder stuff like that. And I should add, like if I got a raw beginner, we'll do dumbbell complex, and then the rest of the lift will just be a 1 by 20.
Yes.
And we try to get in shape and learn the movements with that because 1 by 20 is great for, again, those shotgun effects. Um, but that's just small sample of a workout. So usually you'll go like main lift, or if a raw beginner, you're going Javora complex with some jumping in there, 1 by 20 total body. Okay, once they get to a certain point, then they may still probably be on the Javora complex, more than likely. Then we're doing strength circuit and then some what I call bulletproofing work after.
B circuit. Whatever.
B circuit. The B circuits can also take, if let's say a kid shows up late, this is classic. Oh, I only have 30 minutes to work out. We'll go right to a B circuit where we'll have, our sled drags or carries, maybe some tumbling if they can handle it, or if we have the mats in there, stuff like that. And we're able to kind of keep that on the timestamp, and then boom, out they go. That's
Yep.
also a great in-season thing, just to kind of keep them going. Then we could hit the recovery bag, which is stuff we kind of learned about in the previous video. But yeah, that's just a small sample of the workout, and I'll put those together based on progression, um, and where they're at.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's ConjuPIT. Anything else about that?
It's ConjuPIT, yeah, in a nutshell. Not really, but feel free to buy the book.
Yeah, the book's great. All right. Work hard always.
Rant hard always.